here on the front of the quilt we have a continuous thread, no break. So that means the bottom thread is what broke. I need enough of this to bury the end. So I'm going to take it out in this direction, bury that end, bury this end, do the same thing with the back, and then restitch it. So I'm very carefully going through without cutting threads. And again, very nice little bent tip tweezers.
You can use those bent tip tweezers, or you can use a thread pick for this.
I'd be really careful using a thread pick because I don't want to break this. I'm conserving my stitches as much as possible. Now what I have on this side is a continuous loose thread. It's under there. I need half of it on this side and half of it on this side. It's under those stitches. So this stitch line went down first. Okay, so what I'm going to do, the big scary thing, I'm just going to snip that thread in the middle. And then do the same thing. Just straighten this a bit. And you can use thread conditioner to straighten this if you want. It doesn't take that much. You want to be careful because this will just keep unraveling. Because the bottom, it will unravel all the way to where you did the lat, and there it is. Alrighty, so we're going to use the John James Signature Collection needles. We've taken out the break and straightened out the thread, and we have it ready for burying the ends and on the front and the back. And now Jason is going to do that with these, right?
Yes, I am.
Alrighty, so why don't you walk us through what you're going to do first?
Okay, so I'm going to be using the number 11 in between or betweens of the John James Signature Collection. They're nice and small. They've got little bitty eyes, so it shouldn't cause too much damage as I'm pulling things through.
Will not cause any damage as we pull it through the quilt itself. And again, this is small. This is very dense fabric, part of it that we're going to be putting it through. So we want it to be as
thin as possible.
Thin as possible to go through, and you can see just for that's how small that needle is. Alrighty, here we go. So,
okay, so I'm going to flip this over. The first thing I'm going to do
is pull those threads to the back.
Pull this.
You need a thread pick.
I've got here.
So you can use this or a thread pick to pull that
just
through.
Loosely pull through.
So those should be together.
Right. Just like so. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to finish off this stitch. You can see that that stitch is not finished.
It is from the front.
From the front, right
it is
there.
Finished.
From the back, I just need to put that together. So I'm just going to put this in the eye of the needle.
Thread up.
Both threads will need to go through.
All right, so the needle is threaded, and here we go.
Here we go. So I'm just going to make one stitch. I'm just going back just a tiny little bit. I'm only going through one layer of fabric.
So you're just going through the back layer of fabric.
Right. I'm taking like about a half stitch. I'm not going through either of the holes that had previously gone through. Just enough to finish that stitch off.
That's right.
So it finishes like so. Now I'm going to tie a little knot in here. You can do it any way that you like it. This is my favorite way of doing it. It's just to wrap this around a few times.
Now this would be easier if we had a longer
thread. Yes, it would
thread.
be. So pull that, and now I've got a little knot there.
Little tiny knot.
Right there. And I'm just going to pull these through.
Just under one layer.
Under one layer.
About a needle length.
Pull that through.
Bring it in there. You heard the thread come through, the knot come through, and it's done. Gonna cut that off.
Trim it off.
And fingers crossed. Alrighty, so now we have a decent length of thread to work with.
Let me just trim off
the
ends
so
there.
Even. And then gonna thread the needle again.
I will
Other direction.
take just about a half a stitch.
Only through the back layer.
Yep, just enough.
Very small stitch.
Tiny little stitch there. Like so. Finishing that off.
And then here we go with the knot. This should be a little easier.
Yes.
Just wrapping that.
Let me take this off my finger and I can do that much easier.
Just taking off the thimble, wrap that
2,
around.
3.
You can see those twists around there. Pinch the twists.
Push that right on through.
Pull it through and it should make a nice little knot.
About a half an inch or so
and
away
you can see that
from
tiny little knot. Now just going to go off to the side.
and
Just through one layer.
Just through one layer.
About a needle length.
Yep. So pull that.
Pull that through and pop.
Gentle pop.
And right there it goes. Snip that off and you're done. And that thread is buried.
Okay.
And next up,
last little step is just to re-sew.
So we're going to put that on the machine, which is there. Alrighty, so now we're going to, on the machine, you could do this by hand. We're going to sew it on the machine. And what I will do is I will set the needle right there, stitch down through here, and stop one before. So I'll set the needle one after and one before. And then when I weave this in, when we bury that thread, I'll do one stitch by hand. When we bury this thread, we'll do one stitch by hand, okay? And so that's the way it will work. You don't want to try to overlap and get everything exact. Just don't even, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. You have to do another stitch anyway, so do it by hand. So I am setting my needle so that I know, and see here it's nice because you kind of have the little punctures from before, from when I took those out, and right there, I don't know if you can see that on camera, but there's one little needle puncture right there, and that's where I want my needle to come down, as well as near as I can. And you'll see there's a little mark here on the front. I'm going to line that up. I'm going to get it as close as I can, and usually, like right there would come down right on top of it. If I hide the end of this under the back bar, that usually is about a stitch length. There. Whew. Now for my first couple of stitches, I'm going to hold this thread off to the side. I'm going to not pull it, but just hold it secure.
That'll keep you from getting any one of those nests that you get on the back of your fabric.
And furthermore, it just makes everything nice and snug so that it doesn't pull the thread loosely. Beautifully. So I'm going to take a couple of slow stitches to make sure that I'm on track. There, the thread is set. I've let go of my thread. And now I'm just going to carefully follow that line. And I have a little line to follow. If you can't see your line, you can redraw it or remark it with a harrow marker. I can see the line of the previous stitch holes. So I'm going right up to there, and I am just about one thread away, one stitch away, so I'm going to stop. I'm not going to cut the thread, so don't hit any of those automatic things in your machine. If you have that, you want to raise the foot, raise the needle, and then gently give it a pull off to the side, and that'll pull up your bobbin thread and your needle thread to length. Give yourself plenty of thread to weave in. I always do more than I need to because I'm not the one who ends up weaving these in. It's usually Jason.
That would be me.
So I am nice to him and leave plenty for him, more than he needs. More than he needs. Alrighty, now if we look at this carefully, fingers crossed, I did this correctly. And I am about 1 stitch away there.
Yep.
Which looks good. And I'm about 1 stitch away here.
Yep.
And that's even better. That's really good. Alrighty, so here we are. We have sewn this. I'm actually about 1.5 stitches, 2 stitches away here, and 1.5 stitches, 2 stitches away here, which is great. Gives me just enough. And now we will use this thread, the top thread, on both of these. Leave them on the top. The ones on the bottom will stay on the bottom. And we will make that single stitch. So we're going to thread up and do that by hand right now. If you look at this one, you can see that loop from the back is sticking up, and I don't want that to get in the way. So I'm going to find my bottom thread and just, did you see that snug up?
Yep.
So I'll do that again. There it is loose. And then I'm just, here's my bottom thread. I'm just going to snug that. Not tight, but just snug. I'm going to hold that in place so that it doesn't loosen up on me. So I'm good. Also that I'm kind of underneath, I'm holding it off to the side a little bit. So here we go. I know that I'm going to put my first stitch down halfway between those two and go down through to the back side. Yep, I'm happy with that. And then come back up. This one's easier to see. Right there at the end of that last stitch. And down where my other stitch was. And snug.
And you've got a perfect line of stitches right there.
Okay, and I check the back, make sure those two are next to each other, and of course they are. Everything looks great. Next up, we will make a knot in those and bury the tails. Okay, we are ready to bury the tails. I bury my tails differently than Jason does. There is no 100% always do it this way for us to do it. Jason's is the way that I was originally taught to do it. This way, what you'll do is you don't make a knot and pop the knot through. What I do is make 2 teeny tiny stitches, either in line with these, only through 1 layer of fabric, and it hides them. I hide the layers, the stitches right next to these, and do a few back stitches right in a row. And what that does is makes a nice snug little set of back stitches, teeny tiny, almost little knots, just using the threads of the backing. Let me turn this around. So if I were doing this, I would go in and come up right there next to that thread. And then just do a tiny back stitch that only takes a bite out of 2 or 3 threads. And what that does, and I'll do that there, then there, then there. Then you can make a knot and bury it. I like the additional security of that. So I have these 2 separated threads. I'm going to go one back here, right back where the furthest one away go. I'm going to work that direction. I'm going to go here and bring up my needle just back next to that long stitch, like so, and just make sure that's nice and snug. Yep. And then I'm just picking up a couple of threads. See that? And then I advance my needle. Again, I'm not going through the front. I'm only going through the backing. This is that Robert Kaufman wide back that we used. Okay, do the same thing again. And you can see I'm just making, you see that tiny little stitch?
Tiny little bitty stitch.
Yeah,
there,
you can't see it. And see, it's 2 threads. Like, I'm not kidding. 1 or 2 threads, and that's it. And I'm bringing them up so close to the other line of stitching that there's what it looks like when it's finished. Nearly invisible.
Nearly invisible, yep.
And then if you want, I'm going to do a tack stitch.
Just to secure it.
And then I won't make a knot from here. I'll just go off to the side. Again, only going through the back layer of fabric, and do it for a needle length. So I'm taking the full needle length. Needle up through. And secure it. And there's the mend from both ends. And from the front. And now I've lost where it is. There.
Yep.
That's the mend.
Again, unless you're looking for it, you would never know there was.
You're not going to see that. And we'll have a hard time finding it later.